Giles and Dylan are a few of the many foreign expatriates who have pursued a career in game development here in Japan. There's just something about the culture here that draws in people from all over the world. Alex May is another expat, an Australian of Chinese descent based in the Osaka area. Alex May is one half of Winning Blimp, one of the indie development teams featured at this year's Bit Summit. Winning Blimp is currently working on an iOS puzzle game called Mosaic. Getting the word out about his game has been a challenge, but it's not the first one he's experienced here.
I think one of the main things was, as you probably know about Australia, it's generally a pretty horizontal society, and there's not so much a sense of you're above me or you're below me or anything like that. In this country, it's very vertical. Yeah. So there's always somebody that's above you or below you in terms of ability, authority, age, experience, and it's pretty well known about the Japanese language that you have to be very aware of that when you're talking, whether you're talking up to somebody or talking down to somebody or things like that. That was one particular aspect that was quite difficult when I first came.
So what's the story behind you getting into game development? How'd that happen?
For me personally, it goes back to the Commodore Amiga. It's a single or two-word answer to your question. As you probably know, of course, people from England, people from Europe and also Australia as well, very much Commodore focused. And those kinds of, unlike game consoles where you turn it on, you put your game in, you play and you turn it off, with those you turn it on, you put your game in, you play a bit, you get really inspired, you close it down and then you fire up an art package or a music package and you just sort of dabble. And for me personally, my brother had his Amiga 500 and it wasn't a day that I wasn't pestering him to let me use his Amiga and just try out some graphics and try out some music. It was just sort of a natural progression, I guess.
So over there in the West, there's been this kind of explosion of indie development with the advent of digital distribution, and it's become a really thriving market of games development. But over here in Japan, it hasn't quite been the same story. How would you describe the state of indie gaming over here?
It's a very, very complicated question. I think firstly, to begin with, it's important to define that what we would call indie in the West it's, as you said, the industry here hasn't developed in the same way as it has in the West, by our definition of what indie is. If indie means an independent game developer who's making games and releasing them without the assistance of a publisher or something like that, then there actually is a sort of a huge thriving community, especially with PC games.
Right.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the doujin manga fan art kind of world.
No, not quite.
Basically, it all started off with kids just basically emulating the the artwork of their favorite manga artists. And those kids get together and form like sort of a small community. And it's all very safe. They're just showing their artwork to each other. So there's no incentive for those people to actually show their artwork outside of their little world.
Oh, it's kind of an insular society.
That's right. And that sort of bleeded on into game development, especially for the PC platform. If you go to an event like Comiket in Tokyo, you'll find loads of what we would define as indie game development activity. However, they're not sort of, it's not part of their incentive to sort of want to promote that and to show other people. It's just within their little world. So the indie sort of scene does exist in that form, but what we would call indie, as in like what we see with the Apple's App Store and all that kind of stuff, doesn't exist here. And I guess the main reason for that, firstly, I guess the homogenous nature of Japanese society means that it's not really sort of appealing or encouraged to do something a bit deviant, a bit different.
Right, yeah, a bit avant-garde.
That's right. That combined with the sort of Japanese tendency for perfectionism, where if you're going to do something, do it the whole way, succeed and do it right. So the birthplace of sort of the indie kind of spark for young people in the West, the high school, university, just have a go at doing some graphics and releasing something. That never starts here because to begin with, that's a bit deviant. Why would you want to do that if you could just go and get a nice cushy job in the company and retire? Secondly, because of that perfectionist attitude, I can't write a game, I need to get a degree for that. I can't program, I can't just sort of look at resources online, I need to actually be taught how to do that properly. And because of that, there's sort of little curiosity about what's out there for just giving it a go yourself. So that's another reason I think why it didn't sort of grow the same way that it has in the West, where people celebrate failure and they don't mind just sort of having a try and seeing what happens.
So how long have you been in the Osaka area now?
I've been here for about, about 11 or 12 years, I think.
Okay, so you're pretty familiar with the city. How would you describe it to somebody who just has no concept of what Osaka is like, or the Kansai region in general?
All right, let's see. Food, comedy, and awkward fashion, I guess. If you ask a Japanese person, they'd probably give you the same answer.
Yeah.
It's like food. There's a great comedy culture in Kansai. So to give more detail into this area, I would say I like it because Kansai people are sort of more willing to poke fun at themselves.
Yeah.
They don't take themselves so seriously, and that just makes for a sort of a very entertaining, sort of dramatic kind of everyday experience here, I think.
Yeah, some of the other developers I've talked to did say that this area is a little bit more offbeat and creative than, say, some place like Tokyo. So that kind of helps to explain why there's so many developers out here.
Right. I think that what helps it along is the sort of, like I said, comedy. People don't take themselves so seriously, which means you don't get those kinds of pretentious attitudes. Look at us, we're arty, or look at us, we're fun.
Right.
It's just like, just give it a try and put yourself out there, and that sort of eccentric character and sort of a little bit of pride in that eccentricity, I think is what defines people in Kansai. And that's one of the reasons why you probably find that most foreigners who live here say that they actually enjoy Kansai very much, more so than perhaps foreigners who live in Tokyo.